The OVN collection of mods adds entirely new factions to the game, each with their own campaign mechanics and rosters. Today, let's kick things off by looking at the Grudgebringers, a nomadic faction. But first, a quick word from Instant Gaming. Did you miss the Steam summer sale but still want to pick games up cheap? Then you should check out Instant Gaming, where they have almost any game you could ask for at cheaper prices than you can find it anywhere else. Whether it's completing your Warhammer 3 DLC collection or finally diving into Ghost of Tsushima now it's on PC, they have you covered, and this is all backed up by their 24/7 customer service. Check out Instant Gaming at the link in the description and grab yourself some cheap games, all while supporting the channel. One last thank you to Instant Gaming for partnering with the channel. Now, onto the video. Their campaign gameplay is extremely strange. You play as a single army for the entire game and take no settlements, meaning the stakes are pretty high in every single battle since you can quickly be wiped out if things go poorly. You can build camps to give yourself some backup, but they can be very costly and not offer much outside of this, so early on it's quite a risky campaign. Their gameplay revolves around collecting their various regiments of renown by completing contracts in their unit roster book. This will show you every regiment of renown you can unlock and what you need to do it. Some are randomly chosen to be locked each campaign, and the only reason I can see for this is to keep some variety from campaign to campaign. My best advice would be to check this as soon as you load in, and if something you really want to use is locked, do a quick restart rather than realizing 50 turns in. It's worth noting that these regiments of renown can gain XP to further increase their power, but if they fall in battle, they will be permanently dead, so be extremely careful when battling with them. Outside of these challenges, they have no real victory conditions outside of the usual settlements. They're also locked out from declaring wars on order factions, so you're mainly going to be taking the fight to evil in all its many forms. When they win settlement battles, they'll have the option to plunder or gift the settlement to a nearby order faction in exchange for gold, relations, and units. Instead of colonization, they work on a horde-based system and have buildings allowing them to recruit a range of units from the Empire, Dwarves, and Ogre kingdoms. There's also various other buildings to bolster their army and economy, and all of these same buildings can be built in their camps, which would be useful were it not for their ability to recruit from their own army anyway. The way they replenish is also quite unique. Instead of the usual friendly territory healing over time, they instead have to move closer to an order-owned settlement and spend gold per unit. You can hover over each to see the individual costs, or just cover the whole army at once. It can be pretty costly, so on weak units it may be better to let them die and replace them with something better, but if you can stay on top of their economy, they can be very hard to kill. If they pick up some skills and buildings, they can get some light replenishment from their encampment stands, but this is very slow, and with nothing else to do, this can bring your campaign to a halt, especially if you've taken a lot of damage. Over the course of their campaign, they can accept contracts from order factions, and these are normally to perform some kind of military action against an evil faction or character. Once completed, these reward you with improved relations with the contract issuers, gold, and items. This works similarly to the Ogre Kingdoms, and similar to them, the rewards are often pretty weak for the effort required. If the mod author happens to see this, jack up those gold rewards, otherwise these are simply not worth the effort or cost of force matching my one army over to fight a single battle for less than 3,000 gold. As well as these contracts, there will also occasionally be local contracts, which are essentially randomly spawning quest battles that reward you with golden relations upon completion. Lastly, they have access to a unit upgrade system similar to the Greenskins. This allows them to spend gold to grant various bonuses to their units. It's fairly simple, but it's another way to burn the very little amount of gold that you have to make all the units that you have a little bit better. There's also a few sub-mod options if you'd like a less lore-accurate but more sandboxy experience. Unlimited armies allows you to field as many armies as you like. I would probably enable this, as the single army made it quite difficult to build up any momentum, and turns quickly became very one note of moving a single army and not worrying about settlements. It's totally down to preference, but personally, I'd quite like this option. There's also movable camps, which unsurprisingly allows you to move your camps around. Personally, I don't see much point in the camps anyway, so allowing them to be moved doesn't really change things for me, but if you want that option, it is there. Moving over to battle, they have an extremely mixed roster with units from the Dwarves, Ogres, Empire, and more. Some of these are unique, but there's a lot of copies or reskins, so there's no need to go over these here. Like their Spearmen and Swordsmen might look a little bit different, but they're the exact same as the Empire units, so can be used the exact same. Their unique units are the Regiments of Renown and Heroes, and even these are mainly tweaked versions of other units from other factions. So in the interest of saving a bit of time, I'll compare them to their base units and point out anything key that changes how they work, but for the most part, if I say nothing and just show their stat cards, they can be used pretty much the same, which is the case for pretty much all of these units. The leader of the faction is Commander Bernhardt, and he's basically just a souped up version of a general of the Empire. He has one mounting option, the Warhorse, and this grants him more speed, charge bonus, and armor. We have Matthias, who is a witch hunter. And he has the mounting option of his Matthias War Wagon, which drops the melee stats significantly, but gains a lot of speed as well as a ton of armor piercing range damage. This makes him into a great skirmishing powerhouse with all of his squad firing while he rolls around. Engrol Goldton is a runesmith and has a Oathstone mounting option, which grants him a better shield and leadership. Ludwig von Uberdorf is an Empire engineer and has a Warhorse mount, and the Emperor's Wrath steam tank, which is a slightly stronger version of the volley gun tank. Alor is an Amber Wizard and can gain an Imperial Griffin, which basically improves everything but the hitbox size. Luther Firestrike is a Bright Wizard and gains a very cool looking Warhorse. Cerridon the Lone Ranger is a Noble and gains a Great Eagle, which grants him tons of speed and charge bonus. And Vladimir Stormbringer is a male Frost Maiden, and he gains a Warhorse. For all their non-hero units, they're all each led by a hero. This is really just an entity in the unit that looks slightly different rather than them having any particularly powerful stats, but it's a nice visual touch alongside the banners. So for the melee infantry, we have Carlson's Guard, who are a version of swordsmen. Eusebio's Flagellants, who are a unit of Flagellants. Goldtongue's Guard, who are a unit of Longbeards. Elrod's Wood Elf Glade Guards, which are a unit of Azrai's Spear War Dancers. Jurgen Munt's Outlaw Infantry are Sarto's of Free Company. Black Avengers are Marauder Berserkers. The Countess Guard are Halberdiers. Asgard Bloodfist's Dwarf Warriors are Longbeards. Boris von Rorkov's 4th Nun Halberdiers, which are Halberdier units. Dieter Schaefer Caribou Greatswords are Greatswords. Dargrim Firebeard's Dwarf Warriors are compared to Longbeards. And the Grudgebringer Infantry are compared to Jade Warriors. The ranged infantry, the Helmgart Bowmen, are compared to archers. The Keeler Longbows, also archers. Lydorf's 9th Crossbows, compared to crossbows. Grudgebringer Crossbows, are also crossbows. And Gaeld's Elf Archers are Waywatchers. For the cavalry, Stefan Weiss Outlaw Pistoliers are Pistoliers. Ragnar's Wolves are somewhere between Kosovite Dervishers and Marauder Horsemen. Carlson's Cavalry are Knights Errant. Podbringer's Reiksguard Knights are Reiksguard. The Grudgebringer Cavalry are Knights of the Black Rose. Bertrand Legrand's Knights of the Realm are of course Knights of the Realm. Vanheim 7th are another Knights of the Black Rose. And Tristan Delatour's Grail Knights are obviously Grail Knights. For 3 monster units, Urblab Rotgut's Mercenary Ogres are Iron Fist Man-Eaters. Treeman Nalfist is a Treeman, and Treeman Nalroot is also a Treeman. And lastly, their artillery, Uta Blomquist's Imperial Mortar is a mortar unit. Flugenheim's Imperial Cannons are cannons. The Emperor's Hellblaster Volleygun is a Hellblaster Volleygun, and the Grudgebringer Cannon is obviously a cannon. So now for some thoughts about the mod itself. This is an incredibly strange faction. Whilst I do respect the dedication to keeping them as just one army that fights evil in its many forms, it does come across as very limiting when you're playing and you don't really have a lot to do. One army and no settlements means every turn was just moving and or fighting, skill points, the occasional research project, and that's about it. If you're looking for a simple campaign that you can blast through turns with, then this won't bother you, but personally, I found it to be a little bit too empty. Speaking of empty, their coffers. The economy struggle here is pretty bad too. The lack of background income makes keeping on top of your expenses quite the challenge with all the costs starting to pile up. You obviously have recruitment and upkeep, but you also have horde buildings, camps and their buildings, which take a very long time to give you anything back at all. Even replenishment can quickly drain your money if you take a lot of hits in a battle. If you like challenge, then you'll probably enjoy this, but unless you're fighting every battle and min-maxing to lose as few units as possible, you're going to struggle to keep your dudes healthy for a very long time. Like I said in the campaign section, the contracts here don't offer enough reward, just like the Ogre Kingdoms, and the lack of reward has kind of seeped into the rest of the mechanics. The rewards for plundering or gifting settlements are very low, even when you have all the research for them. The local contracts are hardly worth it if you take any casualties at all. I would say either remove upkeep and recruitment costs similar to the Beastmen, or jack up the rewards by like 500%, because as it stands, this is a bit of a poverty simulator. As for the unit side of things, I'm pretty pleased overall. Everything here is relatively balanced, especially considering how hard their actual unique units are to recruit. They all look fantastic, and the idea of having normal units led by heroes is a great one, even if it's only visual. It's not really a complaint, but the fact that basically everything here is just a tweaked version of existing units does feel a tiny bit cheap. That said, from what I know, they're meant to be basically a bunch of dudes from different factions fighting evil, so it makes sense that they'd just be elite versions of normal units. Overall, while I probably wouldn't play much of this faction again, they are totally unique, and if you're looking for a challenging campaign that you can get through quickly, they are a great option. And that is everything I have on the OVN Grudgebringers mod. Obviously, I'm going to be working through the rest of these mods, but if you have anything else you'd like me to take a look at, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and if you want to check out more mod videos, then why not this one, all about the expanded roster mods.